Hey legends, welcome back to The Reasons Why. Today, we're diving headfirst into the ultimate comic book battle, Marvel vs. DC. And spoiler alert, we've got 21 savage reasons why Marvel leaves DC in the dust. From box office domination to meme supremacy, we're pulling no punches. So grab your popcorn because this isn't just a debate, it's war. Let's go! Marvel actually makes you care about the characters. When you watch a Marvel movie, you don't just see superheroes, you see people you'd actually want to grab shawarma with after a fight. Marvel cracked the code by grounding their heroes in real struggles. Tony Stark isn't just a guy in a shiny suit, he's a narcissist with daddy issues and a death wish. Peter Parker isn't swinging around just to flex, he's broke, stressed, and still worried about homework. Even the God of Thunder has a brother complex that could fuel 10 therapy sessions. Compare that with DC, where Superman is basically an indestructible golden boy who solves everything with laser eyes. Yawn. When Marvel characters win, it feels like your underdog friends pulled off the impossible. When they lose, it punches you right in the heart. Don't even bring up Endgame unless you want me crying on camera. This is why Marvel feels alive, because their heroes are human first, super second, and that's exactly why people care. The MCU turned comic nerd culture into mainstream hype. Remember when reading comics used to get you side-eyed in the cafeteria? Fast forward to today, and Marvel turned that so-called nerd culture into billion-dollar box office dominance. The MCU didn't just make superhero movies popular, it made them essential. Midnight premieres became global rituals. Wearing an Iron Man t-shirt went from geeky to fashion statement. Marvel movies turned casual viewers into die-hard fans who suddenly know what Infinity Stones are and can debate multiverse timelines like it's a PhD thesis. DC tried to spark the same hype with Batman v Superman, but instead of excitement, it created memes of sad Affleck. The MCU's genius was in making everyone feel included. Die-hard comic fans spotted Easter eggs, while new fans just enjoyed the ride. That's cultural dominance, when a brand takes a niche and makes it the center of pop culture. Marvel basically said, "Hey world, being a nerd is cool now," and the world said, "Bet." Without Marvel, superhero movies might still be stuck as occasional popcorn flicks. With Marvel, they became the event. Marvel movies know how to balance humor and action. Here's the thing, Marvel cracked a formula that DC keeps fumbling with, mixing laugh-out-loud moments with jaw-dropping fight scenes. Think about it. You're watching the airport battle in Civil War, and in the middle of this epic clash, Spider-Man is geeking out over meeting Captain America. That's not just comic relief, that's character-driven humor that makes the action 10 times more memorable. Marvel knows audiences don't want to sit through 2.5 hours of grim monologues and gray city skylines, looking at you, Batman v Superman. They want to feel the stakes, but also breathe with a laugh in between explosions. That's why Marvel scenes are quotable, from "I am Iron Man" to Thor's "He's a friend from work." Meanwhile, DC swings from one extreme to another, either brooding darkness or awkward forced jokes that feel like they were written during a corporate lunch break. Marvel understands that humor doesn't weaken heroes, it makes them relatable. Because if you were fighting aliens and robots on a Tuesday, you'd crack a joke too. That's why Marvel fights feel alive, while DC fights just feel long. Tony Stark is more iconic than every DC billionaire combined. Bruce Wayne might have the Batcave, but Tony Stark has something Batman never will: personality. Stark isn't hiding in the shadows pretending to be just a symbol. He's out in the open saying, "Yeah, I'm Iron Man, deal with it." That one line alone made him instantly more legendary than decades of brooding bat whispers. And let's be real, Oliver Queen tried to be Marvel's Batman over at DC, but Green Arrow never reached half the charisma Stark delivers just by sipping whiskey in a boardroom. Tony Stark is a billionaire who doesn't just buy gadgets, he builds them with his own genius, while also being funny, flawed, and devastatingly human. Wayne? He broods in a cave. Stark? He builds time travel in one afternoon. Tell me who's more impressive. Plus, Robert Downey Jr. didn't just play Tony Stark, he became him, forever welding the character to pop culture. Meanwhile, DC keeps swapping Batman like bad Tinder dates. At the end of the day, if you ask someone to name the most famous superhero billionaire, odds are they'll say Tony Stark first, and that's game over for DC. Marvel villains actually have depth and motives. Here's where Marvel leaves DC in the dust. Their villains don't just want to destroy the world because evil, they actually believe in their cause. Take Thanos. The dude wasn't out here twirling a mustache. He thought wiping out half the universe was a logical, necessary move to save it from overpopulation. Messed up? Absolutely. But you can almost understand why he does it. Killmonger in Black Panther? He wasn't just a bad guy, he was a tragic product of systemic injustice, and his fight exposed real-world issues. Even Loki, technically a villain, became so layered and relatable that fans demanded his own series. Compare that to DC's baddies. Steppenwolf, the CGI version of cardboard, wanted a box. That's it. Lex Luthor? Half the time, nobody knows if he's plotting world domination or just auditioning for a bad TED Talk. Marvel villains feel alive, driven, and complex, which makes every battle feel like an ideological clash, not just a punching contest. That's why Marvel villains get quoted, memed, and remembered, while DC's roster is mostly collecting dust in the bargain bin of generic evil. Alright, pause the battle for a second. Now it's your turn. Drop your funniest, boldest, or most savage reason why Marvel destroys DC in the comments. Don't hold back, because the best clapbacks might get featured in our next Users Edition. So, what's your killer argument? Spider-Man alone is a cultural juggernaut. If Marvel had only created Spider-Man, they'd still be winning. This web-slinger is so massive that he's basically his own brand inside Marvel's brand. Think about it. 3 different actors have played Spider-Man in the last 2 decades, and instead of tiring people out, each version became iconic. Toby gave us meme gold with Pizza Time. Andrew delivered the emo Tumblr Spidey era. Tom Holland is literally Marvel's baby brother who grew up on screen. And then, Marvel doubled down with Into the Spider-Verse, a movie so good it made grown adults cry over a cartoon pig named Spider-Ham. Spider-Man isn't just a hero, he's a movement. He's in games, memes, toys, Halloween costumes, TikTok edits, and theme parks. Everyone, from a 6-year-old to your grandma, knows the "with great power comes great responsibility" line. Compare that to DC. Sure, Batman and Superman are household names, but neither of them dominates youth culture like Spidey does. Marvel basically has a hero who alone overshadows half of DC's lineup. Spider-Man isn't just Marvel's crown jewel, he's the entire jewelry store. The Avengers crushed box office records DC can only dream of. Numbers don't lie, and Marvel's numbers are a KO punch. The Avengers in 2012 didn't just break records, it redefined what a blockbuster franchise could be. Marvel pulled off the impossible. They built up individual hero movies, stitched them together into one massive crossover, and made over $1 billion doing it. Then came Infinity War and Endgame, the latter pulling in nearly $2.8 billion worldwide, dethroning Titanic and giving Avatar a serious scare. That wasn't just a movie release, it was a global event. People camped out for tickets, theaters ran non-stop screenings, and spoilers were treated like nuclear codes. Meanwhile, DC tried their own team-up movie with Justice League, and let's just say audiences didn't exactly sell out theaters for Mustache Gate Superman. Marvel's box office dominance proves one thing: when you build characters people actually love, the payoff is astronomical. DC's problem? They rushed the process, while Marvel played the long game, and the results show in billions of dollars DC can only drool over. Marvel heroes feel human, flaws and all. Marvel's secret weapon? Their heroes aren't gods on pedestals, they're people you could actually imagine grabbing a beer or shawarma with. Take Captain America. Yeah, he's a super soldier, but he's also a man out of time trying to figure out how to use modern slang without sounding like your grandpa. Thor might be the literal god of thunder, but he also gains weight, plays Fortnite, and has panic attacks. That's relatable. Even Iron Man, who lives in a mansion and flies around in $1 billion suit, spends half his life wrestling with guilt and trauma. These flaws make them feel real. They win not because they're perfect, but because they fight through imperfections. DC, on the other hand, tends to give us untouchable icons. Superman is basically an indestructible space god, and Batman is a ninja billionaire with endless gadgets. Cool? Sure. Relatable? Not so much. Marvel cracked the code by making their characters heroes you root for, because they're flawed, not in spite of it. It's messy, it's human, and it's exactly why audiences connect with Marvel on a deeper level. Marvel's crossovers actually make sense. When Marvel brings heroes together, it feels like the natural climax of years of storytelling. Iron Man doesn't just show up in Spider-Man: Homecoming out of nowhere. It makes sense because their stories are connected. When the Guardians of the Galaxy meet Thor in Infinity War, the audience cheers because the setup was built carefully across multiple films. Marvel's crossovers feel earned, like puzzle pieces finally clicking into place. Now contrast that with DC's approach. They threw Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman together in Batman v Superman without even properly introducing half the team. Then, they rushed into Justice League like someone trying to microwave a frozen turkey in 5 minutes. The result? Confusing storylines, awkward introductions, and zero emotional payoff. Marvel took the time to make every connection believable, so when characters collide, fans feel the weight of history behind those moments. DC crossovers? They just feel like homework assignments you didn't prepare for. That's why when Marvel does it, the audience screams. When DC does it, the audience shrugs. Marvel memes run the internet daily. If you've spent even 5 minutes online, you know Marvel practically owns meme culture. From I am inevitable to Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good, Marvel has given us a buffet of lines, reaction faces, and moments that live rent-free in social feeds. Cap whispering, "Hail Hydra," instant meme. Loki's smug grin, meme. Thor's another, coffee smash, meme. The internet eats Marvel alive, and Marvel knows it. They even lean into the humor with self-aware writing that guarantees viral content. Meanwhile, DC memes mostly revolve around how bad their movies flop. Martha became a meme not because it was clever, but because it was so painfully awkward that audiences laughed out of pity. When your most famous meme moment is Batman and Superman bonding over their moms' names, you've officially lost the culture war. Marvel memes fuel endless TikToks, Twitter threads, and Reddit wars, keeping the MCU in constant conversation long after a movie leaves theaters. DC, they trend when they screw up. Marvel trends because fans can't stop quoting them. And in the digital age, memes aren't just jokes, they're dominance. Stan Lee became a pop culture god. Every legend needs a face, and Marvel had Stan the Man Lee. This guy wasn't just a writer or a creator, he was the soul of Marvel, turning the company into a cultural powerhouse. Stan Lee didn't just invent characters, he invented icons that reflected real people with real struggles. And then, just to flex, he made himself part of the cinematic universe with those unforgettable cameos. Every time he popped up, whether selling hot dogs, driving a bus, or casually chatting with Thor, the entire theater lit up. That's cultural magic. DC, they've got brilliant creators behind the scenes, sure, but none became the universal symbol of their brand like Stan Lee did for Marvel. He wasn't just loved by fans, he was worshipped. His passing was mourned worldwide like the loss of a real-life Avenger. That kind of cultural immortality cements Marvel's superiority. Stan Lee made Marvel not just a company, but a family, and his spirit still feels baked into every project they release. DC may have legends behind their comics, but Marvel had Stan Lee, and that's checkmate. Marvel nails the post-credit scene hype machine. Let's be real, Marvel trained an entire generation of fans to sit through movie credits, something no studio had ever managed before. The post-credit scene isn't just a gimmick, it's a masterclass in building hype. You watch Iron Man and suddenly Nick Fury strolls in, whispering about the Avengers initiative, and boom, fans lose their minds. Every scene became a breadcrumb trail leading to the next big thing. It turned casual viewers into detectives, theorizing about every hint and Easter egg. DC tried to copy this formula, but their post-credit scenes either felt pointless, Justice League's "let's make a league of our own" that went nowhere, or desperate, Shazam teasing Superman without actually showing Superman. Marvel, on the other hand, made their end credit tags legendary. Fans literally cheer when the screen goes black and the text "directed by" pops up because they know something's coming. Marvel turned waiting into an event. DC turned waiting into disappointment. That's why Marvel doesn't just end movies. They extend them, sparking conversations and theories that dominate social media for months. Their Disney Plus shows expanded the universe brilliantly. Marvel didn't just stop at movies. They said, let's take over your living room too. And they did. Disney Plus shows like WandaVision, Loki, and Falcon and the Winter Soldier weren't just filler. they expanded the MCU in bold, creative ways. WandaVision broke TV norms with sitcom parodies that turned into a heartbreaking exploration of grief. Loki gave us multiversal chaos and introduced Kang, setting up the next phase of Marvel. Even Hawkeye, the least hyped Avenger, suddenly felt relevant thanks to his series. These shows weren't side quests, they became essential chapters in the MCU saga. Meanwhile, DC's TV game, let's just say the CW Arrowverse, is there. While Marvel was dropping cinematic quality stories on streaming, DC was giving us 200 episodes of soap opera drama where everyone cries under neon lighting. Marvel proved they could dominate not just theaters, but also streaming, keeping fans locked in year-round. By turning shows into must-watch canon, Marvel turned binge-watching into homework, but the fun kind. DC wishes they had that level of consistency and cultural grip. The Marvel fan community is bigger and louder. Marvel doesn't just have fans, it has an army. Go online after any Marvel release, and you'll find Reddit threads exploding with theories, TikToks breaking down Easter eggs, Twitter trending with quotes, and YouTube filled with breakdowns before you've even left the theater. The community is a living, breathing hype machine that Marvel smartly fuels with constant teasers, cryptic trailers, and interconnected storylines. DC fans, they're passionate too, but a lot of their energy gets drained into fighting each other over Snyder Cut versus non-Snyder Cut, or whether the DCEU is even still alive. Marvel fans, on the other hand, unite in collective meltdown whenever Kevin Feige announces a new project. Remember when Endgame tickets dropped and entire ticketing sites crashed? That wasn't casual interest, that was fan frenzy on a global scale. Marvel doesn't just make movies, they create cultural moments that fans rally around. It's not just bigger numbers, it's bigger energy, bigger voices, and bigger community hype. Simply put, Marvel fans move like a squad. DC fans argue like a group chat. Marvel's multiverse game is way ahead of DC's. DC keeps talking about the multiverse like it's their secret weapon, but Marvel actually delivered it first, and better. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness cracked open the idea with trippy visuals and alternate realities. Spider-Man. No Way Home didn't just nod at the concept, it united 3 generations of Spider-Man on screen, creating one of the loudest theater reactions in movie history. And Loki, that show straight up birthed the multiverse storyline with Kang, setting up Marvel's entire next saga. Meanwhile, DC fumbled the bag with The Flash. Their multiverse moment was hyped as the comeback of Michael Keaton's Batman, but instead, it turned into a CGI nightmare featuring plastic baby simulations and a clumsy attempt at nostalgia. Marvel turned the multiverse into an engine for limitless storytelling potential. DC turned it into a gimmick to fix continuity problems. That's the difference. Marvel uses the multiverse to expand possibilities. DC uses it as a band-aid. And in a war of worlds, Marvel already has fans buying tickets for every new what if they drop. The casting choices are legendary. Marvel doesn't just cast actors, they anoint them. Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark wasn't casting, it was destiny. Chris Evans turned from that guy in Fantastic Four into Captain America himself. Chris Hemsworth went from a nobody to the God of Thunder. Tom Holland? He's so perfect as Spider-Man that audiences instantly forgave reboot fatigue. Marvel nails casting because they pick actors who become the characters, not just play them. DC, on the other hand, has been through more Batman than Spider-Man has suits. They can't even keep Superman consistent, with Henry Cavill in and out like it's a part-time gig. Jared Leto's Joker? Let's not even go there. That casting was so cursed it made fans nostalgic for clown makeup, and why so serious? Marvel actors feel locked into pop culture history. DC actors feel replaceable. That's why fans cry when a Marvel actor exits the role. It feels like losing the hero themselves. When Marvel casts, they make legends. When DC casts, it feels like a gamble. And the receipts are all on screen. Marvel made Guardians of the Galaxy A-listers. DC can't even make Green Lantern work. Here's the ultimate flex. Marvel took a talking raccoon, a sentient tree, and a washed-up space outlaw, and turned them into global superstars. Guardians of the Galaxy was a total gamble, with characters even hardcore comic fans barely knew. And what happened? Instant cult classic, billion-dollar franchise, and Groot became the most beloved tree since Christmas. Meanwhile, DC had Green Lantern, one of their core Justice League members. and managed to make one of the worst superhero movies of all time. Not only did it flop, but even Ryan Reynolds roasts it in his own Deadpool movies. That's the difference in vision. Marvel can take a nobody team and make them unforgettable. DC can take a top-tier hero and turn them into a punchline. Guardians proved Marvel doesn't just rely on big names like Spider-Man or Iron Man, they can mint brand new legends out of thin air. DC, they've got a treasure chest of characters and somehow keep tripping over their own scripts. Marvel makes stars. DC wastes potential. Case closed. Marvel has consistency. DC has chaos. Marvel built the MCU like a well-oiled machine. Every film connects, every character has an arc, and the overall story feels like it's actually going somewhere. Even when a Marvel movie isn't a 10 out of 10, it still fits into the bigger picture. That's why fans trust Kevin Feige like he's the GPS of the Marvel universe. He knows the route. DC, meanwhile, is basically a group project where nobody talks to each other. One director wants a dark, gritty universe. Another wants jokes. Another says, forget all that, let's reboot. The result? Total chaos. We had Justice League in 2 different cuts, 3 different Jokers in less than a decade, and a Batman timeline so messy you need a whiteboard to follow it. Marvel is consistent. You know what you're getting, and you know it ties into the bigger saga. DC keeps hitting the reset button, confusing fans and killing momentum. That's why Marvel feels like a universe, and DC feels like a bunch of random movies fighting for relevance. In short, Marvel's house is in order. DC's house is on fire. The MCU has more cultural milestones than the DCEU. Marvel movies don't just make money, they make history. Black Panther wasn't just a superhero film, it was a cultural revolution. The first superhero movie to earn a Best Picture Oscar nomination and a celebration of Afrofuturism that reshaped Hollywood. Avengers. Endgame wasn't just a sequel, it became the highest-grossing movie of all time, even if Avatar clawed back later. Iron Man didn't just launch a franchise, it launched the entire concept of cinematic universes that studios still copy today. Marvel constantly drops moments that feel like worldwide events. Spider-Man swinging with the Avengers, Cap wielding Mjolnir, Tony's final, "I am Iron Man." These scenes don't just entertain, they become permanent cultural markers. Now, let's check DC's list. The Dark Knight was legendary, no doubt, but since then, most of their big moments are tied to behind-the-scenes drama, failed reboots, or Twitter wars over which cut of a movie is canon. Marvel creates milestones you tell your grandkids about. DC creates headlines that make you sigh. That's the difference between leading culture and chasing it. Marvel's humor doesn't feel forced, unlike DC's attempts. Marvel has mastered the art of slipping jokes into the chaos without breaking the story. When Thor yells, "He's a friend from work," mid-battle, it feels natural because that's who Thor is. When Ant-Man cracks awkward jokes while shrinking and growing, it works because that's his character. Marvel's humor flows out of personality and timing, not desperation. DC, on the other hand, struggles. You can practically see the boardroom notes in some of their scripts. Insert funny line here to lighten the mood. The result? Awkward, cringy one-liners that land with a thud. Justice League's "Do You Bleed?" joke remix? Painful. Marvel understands that humor doesn't weaken stakes, it enhances them, giving fans breathing room between explosions and emotional gut punches. That's why audiences leave Marvel movies quoting lines and laughing about moments, not rolling their eyes. DC tries to be funny, like the cool kid who tells a joke 5 seconds too late. Marvel is the cool kid. Marvel wins simply because Endgame was a global event. No exaggeration. Avengers. Endgame wasn't just a movie, it was a cultural holiday. People skipped work, schools organized trips, and theaters sold out at levels usually reserved for Star Wars. Entire audiences cheered, cried, and screamed together as if they were at a sporting event. When Cap picked up Mjolnir, theater eruptions. When Tony snapped his fingers, global heartbreak. Marvel achieved something DC has never pulled off, turning cinema into a shared worldwide experience. It didn't matter if you were a casual viewer or a hardcore comic fan, everyone was there, everyone was talking about it, and everyone felt part of something massive. Endgame wasn't just a conclusion, it was the payoff for over a decade of careful storytelling. DC has never had that level of collective hype. Not even close. Justice League was supposed to be their endgame, but instead it became a meme war between the theatrical cut and the Snyder cut. Marvel ended Phase 3 with a mic drop so loud it echoed around the world. And that, right there, is why Marvel wins. Thanks for watching, Legends! Now it's your move. Hit the comments with your best Marvel vs. DC arguments, and let's see who can drop the spiciest take. And hey, if you loved this debate, smash that subscribe button so you never miss the next one. This is The Reasons Why. Epic debates, legendary comments. See you in the next battle.